wonderful. Wonderful to see so many of you here at our first annual Women in Finance event. We hope to make this an annual regular feature. You're going to meet an amazing bunch of panelists, and we're very, very happy that Mellody Hobson is joining us in this warm school on a cold winter's day. And so thanks for coming out. It's very nice of you to do that. And you know, one of the things that you know, this is an area, as I said, which is very close to my heart, because I've been looking at some statistics, and by one estimate, which is kind of depressing, about 30% of women with MBAs are no longer in the workforce, and that is, you know, really shocking. And I suspect that number might be even higher in finance, and it's just something that we, you know, all should be aware of and do something about. So I'm here to listen to ideas. I'd love to think about how we can sort of get women back into the, you know, on-ramp towards the fast track, how they can succeed in careers like finance. What do we need to do about changing our policies, changing our corporate cultures even, and the way we work in organizations that helps not only women, but also the men who are, you know, involved in raising families and all of this kind of thing as well. So it's something that will ultimately result, I think, in better gender balance, better work-life integration, if you like, for everyone, not just for women. So this is something that I'm really looking forward to. And, you know, to host us today is Roshini Rajkumar. She's been a host of WCCO Radio's, and I want to make sure that I get the name right. It's News and Views.
Thanks for the plug.
On WCCO Radio. And she also works as a communication coach and is author of Communicate That. And, you know, her clients, you know, call her their secret weapon to deliver powerful presence. So, you know, and so she's absolutely the right person to kick this particular session off. And, yeah, and we will, I'll ask you now to please introduce Mellody and get this show on the road.
All right, thanks, Dean. Thank you so much. And let's give her a round of applause for being the Dean. Talk about a woman who rocks. I'm so honored to be your MC and moderator today. Thank you all for coming. You probably recognize this beautiful woman to my right, Mellody Hobson, in a similar scenario. With a microphone on in a cushy chair under bright lights, Mellody has grown her brand to be a nationally recognized voice on investor education and financial accuracy, financial literacy. And she's called upon by a lot of the bigwigs to talk about it. She commentates right now for CBS News on the markets, on finance, on economic trends. And she has a day job. She is the president of Ariel Investments based in Chicago. And Mellody probably won't have sympathy for any of you who say you can't get in your exercise, because she is a runner and a swimmer, and in this busy schedule finds time every day to work out. She's also, her advice is also valued by some of the big names, Starbucks and Groupon. She serves on their boards, and one of those boards I want to feature is DreamWorks, SKG. She is the chairman of that board, which is so impressive. So let's start with that one, okay? Let's just start at the top. How do you know, you're this young woman in Chicago, and you've really worked your way up in finance. How do you get to a place where you've worked through and established these relationships that you get asked to be on that board?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you all so much for having me. A board is actually the reason why, a board relationship is why I'm here. Thea Green is one of the senior bigwigs at Estee Lauder, where I sit on the board, and she's one of your alums, and from what I understand, going on your own board. And she sent me an email one day, and she said, I know this is a long shot, but my school would love to have you come and speak. And I said, you're not going to believe this, but I have to go to Minnesota at some point, and I actually think I could work this out. So I'm really, really happy to be here. And Thea is a great representative for all that you're trying to do in going out and recruiting me to come and speak. And I think your question is the right question, because a lot of people ask about board service. And I heard someone once tell me board service is by invitation, not application. And I think that's something that, you know, really is absolutely true. They find you, you don't find them. And the way I was found is in a very unconventional way in some ways. I have only ever worked at Ariel my entire career. I've had one job, This is my 22nd year. I went to Ariel, thank you. It does feel like it needs applause. I went to Ariel right out of Princeton, and I have defied all statistics now because the average American has 11 jobs in their lifetime, and they typically have those jobs when they're very young. You know, you're trying to figure out what you're going to do. At Princeton, I graduated in a class of 1,100, and they say that I'm the only person who graduated who's had the same work phone number since I graduated from college, which I take as a badge of honor. But I had my head down. I was working at Ariel. I had been an intern before I worked there, and I was literally just concerned with getting the work done. And I just thought like my job was to work really hard and make myself indispensable. Because my mother told me if you're indispensable, they can't fire you. So that sounded like a good idea. And in the course of doing my work, I ended up volunteering politically. And specifically what I did is I helped Bill Bradley run for president. So Bill Bradley was a Princeton alum who was very, very famous, class of '65, Hall of Fame basketball player. He was running for president. I ended up meeting him. Very long, complicated story.
But the power
bottom line,
of the network of Princeton, too.
Met Bill when I was leaving to go to college. He came back to me after I graduated from college and said, I need your help. And I'm like 22 years old. The relationship develops. He ends up running for president, and he comes back to me and says, I want you to leave Ariel and come work for me. Ariel was a small firm. I had made a huge commitment to our team and to our founder. And I said, I cannot do that to them. But I will work for you and work for Ariel simultaneously, and you'll never know I don't work for you. Wow. So what I did was, from 7 in the morning until like 3 in the afternoon, I worked at Ariel. And from 3 until like 9 at night, 10 at night, I worked for Bill Bradley for 2 years.
So sleep was not really...
Every single day for 2 years. So, you know, he loses, which was very sad. And unbeknownst to me, he's watching everything I'm doing this whole time. So I get this call one day out of the clear blue from him, and he says, Mellody, I'm on the board of Starbucks, and I'm taking you with me. And I was like, what? And he's like, you don't know all the times you've been on the phone with Howard Schultz, and he's seen how you work. And I think that I've recommended you for the board. Now, it wasn't a layup. I didn't just walk into the meeting and get the assignment. And I was really young, and they were watching me.
Can I ask how young you were?
I was like 35 at the time. So relative to the board, and it's Starbucks, and it's this global brand, I was like a pipsqueak.
Did you think you were a pipsqueak, or did you walk in there thinking, I'm hot?
I don't think...
I got this.
No one likes that person.
Yeah, I know. True. Remember that, the students in the room.
They really don't. No, I didn't. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this, pinching myself saying, this is crazy, and I'm in the room with the heavy breathers, and they maybe want me, but I have to be like, you know, not too eager, but also not too like, oh, of course I belong here.
Yeah.
So basically what I said to them, I said, I'd really love to do this. I hope you pick me. And they said, you know, it's going to take us some time to get to know you. I said, whatever amount of time you want, I will wait. I want to be on your board, but I understand that you're going to have to get to know me. And so time would pass, and I'd send Howard Schultz what I jokingly call, and I mean this jokingly, like love notes. So he'd like be on the cover of Fortune. I'm like, great picture, you know, just as a way of making sure.
I read that cover story. That was pretty darn good.
Making sure he didn't forget about me. And then ultimately they came back, but it was tied to Bill. You know, I was working, and my only agenda was for him to get elected. And in so doing, in working really hard for him, this additional benefit came. And it was just a function of having my head down.
Well, and then I want to get into that. So performance has come up as I talk to different people about this area and how women succeed in this area. It's really, a lot of great leaders are trying to not look at gender, but look at performance. And it sounds like Bill watched you perform at high levels and under pressure situations.
But you know what, I have to say, I think that when I was asked to go on the board of Starbucks, there were a lot of reasons that I was asked to go on the board. So I was asked to go on the board because I think they thought I was smart and would do a good job. I also think that they thought she's a woman, she's a financial expert, she has very strong communication skills. So I bring all of myself into the room. And whereas some people are very much like meritocracy, this, that, and the other, all of those other things matter. And I think that's why I am there. I always say to people, I don't think I was the smartest 35-year-old in America. But I think when you added all of those things up, that increased my chances of adding value in that room. And so I'm not gonna shy away from all of those aspects of me that I think were relevant. So when I'm in the room, I'm very comfortable with women's issues. I'm very comfortable with race. I'm very comfortable with financial. I'm very comfortable with branding and communication issues, because I think that's why they asked me.
Right. What would you say, because it sounds like too, risk is part of this. What would you say is the biggest risk you've taken in your career to get something you wanted?
I think there was a very specific risk that I took very early on at Ariel that was unique and unprecedented at the time. I was about 24 years old. I'd been there for a couple of years, and we had these public mutual funds that were in partnership with another company. And I went to our board of directors and said, we need a divorce. It had never happened before, and we pulled apart two operating mutual funds from an existing mutual fund family, $400 million in assets, paid $4 million for the right to do it. It was the whole nest egg of the company. And that was a very, very, very bold call at the time. It was one of those things where you think you're gonna go in and you're gonna make a pitch and they're totally gonna shoot you down. And then ultimately they say yes and you're like, they're not supposed to be listening to me. Don't they know I don't know what I'm doing? But it ended up like marrying me to the company.
Right.
It's where Ariel became mine.
Right.
Now, on a day-to-day basis, what I'm now pushing very hard, and Catherine Berardi is with me, who is my new teammate at Ariel and a spectacular superstar. And she's heard me now say this story like 100 times in 4 months. But my new thing that I'm really pushing very, very hard, especially with women, and my friend Sheryl Sandberg is also doing the same thing in her own magnificent way. I can't even compare myself, because she has a book that's coming out on this idea. But I feel like as women, the risk is us speaking our truth. And the story that I've now been telling is a story that I read about a woman in a magazine who said every single day, her daughter walked out of the house starting when she was a very small child. She said the exact same thing to her every single day through college: be brave. Every single day. She said she wrote her letters in college and she always signed them, be brave. And that now just speaks to me, because I'm in so many rooms where I feel like the courage is not always there. And I don't know what the fear is. Maybe it's the fear of not saying the right thing or not fitting in, but I'd rather the person totally, make a giant mistake than not say anything at all. And I just find with women, sometimes we're really sort of waiting to add our voice. And I don't mean to say this in any way that diminishes us, because we have the good ideas. But, when I was at Princeton, in our precepts, our small groups when we weren't in lecture, they would say something to you that if you were piling on with what someone else said and you'd say, I'd like to reiterate what this person said, they'd say, oh, you mean iterate again. And that was their way of making you see, like, that is not an original thought.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of the women in the room have the original thought in some situations and are waiting to be validated. And I'm just like, go for it. Go for broke. Pound the table. Speak your truth. And I've now noticed it in ways, even in my own firm, where I give people real life examples. We had a board meeting recently at our firm, and one of my colleagues, who's a superstar woman, was presenting, and she was only looking at our CEO when she was talking. And I was like, don't ever do that again. It was like she was looking for his validation, and all the other people around the table, it was like they didn't matter. And I was like, it just made you look small,
right.
And you're not. And that was like a simple example of that being brave. What about her needed to lock on him and have him nod and have her keep going, versus just owning the room with her presence? So
kind of on that note, why is it that some women have trouble supporting other women?
Threat, they feel threatened. Once someone told me the best compliment you can get, a form of being evolved as a woman, is to be non-threatening and not threatened.
So it comes from that inner confidence.
And I think that's a really fine line. Some women are so confident and strong that they're threatening, and others don't have enough of that and feel threatened. Finding that edge that you can live on, I think, is a really amazing place, but it's very, very hard to find. And I think that's why sometimes that threatening side will lead women not to support each other. But I have to tell you, I've been in situations now. I had a situation, a very, very, very tough situation with a really important woman. And she didn't think that I'd shown her enough respect. And it came back to me. How did she tell you that? It came back to me secondhand, where someone called me on a Saturday and said, I think you need to know this. I was crushed. And after I pulled myself together, I said, okay, I'm gonna call her and go and see her. She was in another state. So I called her office, and she's real important, and I said, I'd love to come and see you, and I have a very specific agenda, and I'm asking for 15 minutes of your time, and I will do it on any day that you say, and I will 100% change my schedule to accommodate you. This was like 2 years ago. This wasn't like I was 30 years old. So I go and see her, and I sit down with her, and I said, listen, I'm just gonna put this right out front. I'm not gonna be the woman who has another issue with another black woman. That's not gonna be who I am. If I did something to offend you, I am here right now to apologize. And I will take whatever response, and because whatever you felt, you felt. So I told this story to someone, we end, it's all good. And they're like, why would you fly to Connecticut? And the person seems, small and this, that, and the other. And I said, there's a line in the book, Art of War, that I've always remember. Sometimes you have to crouch to conquer. And if she felt that way, I believe her. But I don't want to go around the country with that being bad blood between us.
Because it's negative energy that's out there.
It's not good for her, it's not good for me, it's not good for black women, it's not good for being the person who supports someone else. There's a whole bunch of reasons that only ends up being a bad thing.
So at that point in your career, you're more advanced. Was that a be brave moment, or was that a strategic, I just have to do this kind of moment?
What I said to her at the time is, this is not about me getting anything from you. This is actually just a belief system that I have about how I want to be present in the world. And I don't want to be present in the world as a person who is toxic or an energy taker or someone who has not been supportive. And if you feel strongly enough to have sent that message back to me, I'll own it.
Let's talk about the men in your life. How many men? And I'm going to go somewhere business-oriented with this, people.
Okay.
I have been blessed with having both amazing men and women mentors. And obviously, Bill Bradley is one of yours. A lot of women in this room have men in their lives who are professors, who are bosses, who are future bosses. How do you cultivate that because of the gender difference line?
I don't even think of the gender difference in that way.
So you just have to go in not thinking about it.
I don't want to sound disingenuous from what I said before. I'm all girl. And I totally own
Look at her
I'll
shoes.
Wear these, I'll do. I mean, I am. I go in being that person. But at the same time, I don't know, for some reason, it doesn't cause me any discomfort or feeling of being. I've been in plenty of meetings with men who have not been mentors that will make me feel that way or try to, but I don't know, maybe living a little naively in that regard protects me from some hurt feelings or something.
And so then how do you deal with those men in the room who make you feel that way, or they're sending that negative?
You just want to be really good. Really, really, really good. You want to exceed all expectations, and even then sometimes you can't win. And then you want to recognize when you can't win. So we had a situation once with someone we were doing business with, and they clearly had an issue. And I go in, as I said, all girl, and I know sometimes that can be a lot. Sometimes I feel like I'm talking to certain guys in meetings and their hair is standing on end because it's like she's getting too close and there's too much energy.
I can't relate to that at all.
Right, you know what I'm talking about. The person you're talking to and they're backing away as you're moving toward them. And you're like, oh my God, he's backing up. Every time I take a step towards him, he moves away. And then you realize you're like, this isn't working. Well, there was a situation like that with someone who was very important to us, and they were a client. And it was clear. And after I got over a really significant sense of hurt, a little teary hurt, with this message that had kind of gotten back to me, I sort of pulled myself together and I was like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. I never go back there. So then let's decide who goes. Because the 80 people at Ariel are more important than my pride.
So that's a little strategic decision too.
Absolutely. And I never go back.
So you have the benefit of being with one company for your entire career, except for the 2 years and here and there with Bill Bradley. How do you give advice to people who don't necessarily have this real family for so long, since your early 20s, and they have to plop themselves down into a new organization, or they're starting in a new organization, and they sense, I'm only going to be here 5 years, whatever. How do you, advise people in the room to navigate?
I think one of the dangers and the things that actually has led to individuals being less successful than they want is that there's this sense that the grass is greener on the other side. I actually think one of the things that has benefited me so significantly is that I was always thinking about the possibility of, oh my God, I could work here for my entire career. So then in taking that long-term view, I was very focused. I feel like sometimes people are like, this is a stepping stone to this next thing. It may be, but then the mind's eye is towards the next thing versus this. And I think that's really problematic. So I've been more concerned with having, especially young people who come to see me, focus on, let me make hay where I am. Let me, hit the cover off the ball where I am. And if that leads to other things, fantastic. And if it's not right, move on. So I think the other side of that, not taking that long-term view and willing to be invested for a long period of time. People talk about 5-year plans. I'm like, in Asia, it's 50-year plans, right? So this idea that you're like sort of measuring your life in those kind of increments, to me, just, I don't know, I think it's actually works against you. But I also think this idea that individuals often are, for lack of a better term, they're so concerned with the perfect thing that which doesn't exist, that they're kind of always finding fault, or the other side of it, they settle. The settling kills me. It kills me.
What if someone's in that place where they feel like they may be settling?
Get out.
But just, how do you start that even conversation with yourself?
I think intellectual honesty is one of the hardest things. I had this goal once, one New Year's resolution. I was like, I'm gonna be intellectually honest with myself. It's actually really hard to do.
How far into the year did you get with that?
Well, it's like we have to kind of talk ourselves into a lot of things just to get through. And I think we kind of give ourselves our own snow job sometimes. And so in being intellectually honest with yourself, I think when it doesn't work, you have to tell yourself, this doesn't work, this isn't right for me, and now what am I going to do versus, as we like to say at Ariel, admire the problem. What am I going to do about it? And in finding, in acting, whatever it might be, sometimes that means you take 3 steps back in order to succeed. Sometimes your next step is not what you thought it would be, but you're happier. These things to me are okay. The settling is what kills me. I had a woman who came to interview at Ariel, and it was on a team. I don't tell people who they hire, but we do have interview, groups. So this woman comes and sits with me, and she talks about how her favorite thing ever, and I always ask people, what is your dream for yourself? You will be surprised at what people say to you. You will be shocked. We had one guy who was like, my dream is to own a Christmas tree village. I was like,
okay, but he's owning it. That's his dream.
And then I had another guy who was like, I want to own a bed and breakfast one day, and you're like, and this woman was like, I want to work in sports. And I said to her there, she was like 25, maybe 28 years old. I said, why do you want a job at Ariel if you want to work in sports? You were a college basketball player, this, that, and the other. Why do you want a job here? It seems like a really great place to work. I said, why aren't you grabbing me by my lapels, asking me, who do you know in sports, so that I could be getting the job of my dreams, instead of settling for what I think is a wonderful place, but not your dream in life? Why would you do that? The person hired her. She still wants a job in sports. I know that. I think she would hit the cover off the ball, no pun intended, if she worked in sports.
But she has to know it from the inside.
She does know it, but I don't know why she won't, you know, and I use a real life example, maybe that's inappropriate, but I dream of her fulfilling that goal. I want that for her. And I would stand ready to help her get there. But the idea that every single day she comes into our company dreaming of something else, to me, is wrong.
Mm-hmm. So I look around and I see so many amazing women in this audience, men too, but let's focus on the women for a moment. It is called Where Are the Women, so I've got to kind of go with that. But women students, women professionals, women in my own life that I see on the street who are just beautiful, even ones I haven't met, and then ones I know who are amazing, and yet the confidence factor is just not quite right. How do you advise women to just own it, to own their stuff, to own their wow, is what I like to say? How do you advise people at any age to do that?
I think we have to trust who we are. I think you got to go deep. And I think, you know, so much of what I respect so much about Oprah is that you just get a sense she's always working on herself. And as women, I think we just have to understand that journey is very important of, you know, going deep in terms of what we want, expressing it, being brave, and trusting that we can do it. You know, it's amazing to me, the guys in my office, you know, who walk in, it's like, you know, bonus time. I don't think I got enough. You know, they're like pounding the table and telling you how great they are. And, you know, and it's like for every 5 of those, there's like one woman maybe in 25 years that has said that to me. And I'm like, you know, it's just amazing. It's like, you know.
What's your reaction to the men who say that? What do you say? Do they get it? Or do you negotiate? Do you talk them down?
It all depends on the setting.
Okay. And the guy?
We had one person who, it was around the financial crisis, and it was a tough time, and if you were in the investment business. And I said to him, I said, I just want you to understand something. Right now, you hold all the cards, but you won't always.
That's a good line.
You hold all the cards. And I said, so I will do whatever I have to do to make sure that this company is standing. And you hold the cards. But just remember, you won't always hold them. Mm-hmm. There was another time someone came in, it was that kind of conversation, and I was so annoyed. I was so angry. And I was like, you know what? I so cannot handle this conversation. Like Rome is burning, and you're asking for something. And I was like, you know what? If I were you, I would just back out of the room.
I love that you would say that.
Mean,
I love it when people say what they mean.
I was like, I would just back out of the room, because if you turn around,
you can't be responsible for what you do.
It's so awful, isn't it? I can't believe I'm saying this, but it is really true. And then other times, you know, you're like, you're right. You know, let's see how we can do better, or, you know, your work has been exemplary. You hope that you've recognized it, but you don't always get it right. You know.
We've talked a lot about so much of the success, but let's back up a couple decades to when you were, or even farther back, when you were really being shaped as a child in Chicago and growing up, and not always easy times. How did you decide to get into the path that you did?
I always tell people, I think I ended up in the financial services business for a very specific reason, which is when I was growing up, I'm the youngest of 6 kids. My mother was a single mom. We had this kind of very uneven life. We used to get our phone disconnected and evicted and things like that. And I was desperate to understand money. I mean, that's just the bottom line. And so I think, like, I wanted to be big, and I wanted to be secure.
And always have a phone.
And always have a phone. And despite an extraordinary effort by my mother, who I owe everything to, there were some deep impressions left. And so those deep impressions made me very, very focused. So, you know, we are a sum of all that happens to us, and that experience left a mark.
Absolutely. What about for fun? What do you like to do for fun? Do you have time?
The things that I now do for fun really shock me. I mean, I do love swimming and running and things like that a lot. And I feel better when I do them. But I also, I started dating someone about 7 years ago who's soon to be my husband, and...
Is that the ring?
This is the ring.
Oh my God. I mean, can we get a close-up of that? I've been eyeing that thing.
He's a good one.
It's gorgeous.
He's a keeper. But I joke with him, he watches Law and Order. I didn't even know what Law and Order was before we started dating.
Really?
So I find in my spare time, I turn on Law and Order because it's on at any time of any day.
Those are
any
repeats.
Country.
Those are the seasons you have missed.
Yeah, so it's 4 in the morning. I watched SVU this morning. And it's I cannot believe I do that, but I joke with him. I'm like, you put me on crack. It's I am always watching Law and Order, which is very, very funny, and I never expected that. It's been on TV for 25 years, and I'd never heard of it. And then for fun, we go to the movies a lot, and I work. And what work is fun to me.
And that's passionate. That's your passion.
If you love it, you don't think of it as work, and I love it. Love it.
It's obvious. I understand you have hundreds of figurines of turtles in your office. And the turtle is the logo for Ariel. And the logo is slow and steady wins the race. We're living in such a fast-paced world. How is that your logo?
One, because we think that's a timeless investing principle. Long-term investing is the only way to win. Short-term investing is trading, not investing. But I also think it has become a mantra for our lives. And so slow and steady with a turtle as a logo, 22 years at a company, lines up with that. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's one of those principles that more and more people are thinking is stodgy or sort of a dinosaur thing. I have one thing in my office, which during the dot-com crisis, people kept calling us baby dinosaurs. And because we were really young, but they thought oh my God, you're rooted in such old-fashioned ideals. And those old-fashioned ideals are old-fashioned for a reason. Aesop's fable on the tortoise and the hare was written in 550 BC. The mere fact that it has lasted that long makes a statement about the timelessness of the values that come across in that story. And we think that the more that point of view is being embraced, especially by younger people, the more successful they will be. It's that idea of I'm not looking out 5 years, I'm looking out long term. I'm not thinking about there's another job for me somewhere else. I'm thinking about this job right now. Those are the kind of things that I think have been able to lead to my success. When I started working at Ariel, our founder, John Rogers, said something to me that I've never forgotten. On my very first day, he took me to TGI Fridays. Big spender. And he said, every game in life is won with patience. Every single one. And he said, I don't care if it's dating, to you can't win the Indianapolis 500 in the first lap, to a basketball game. He's like, if you look at all sports, just a very simple, just one sort of portion of the world, patience is how you win. And that has been something that I intuitively got at that moment. And so that's why the turtle has become, usually we wear turtles, and I didn't wear one today, but that's why the turtle has become such an important symbol. And while I've been at Ariel this is my 22nd year, there are a whole bunch of us baby dinosaurs that are there that are 40 years old, and this has been our one job. Mm-hmm. So I'm not even unique in that way. Mm-hmm. And I think that says a lot. We found people with a common point of view that embrace this idea of this long term.
So you have already accomplished so much, and it's just a pleasure to have you with us today. What is next for Mellody Hobson?
I always think about how can we do everything that we're doing better. Next for us is Ariel 5, 10, 15 years from now being stronger than what we are. I always believe that every 5, 10 years, you're better than you were. So aging to me is a great thing. I tell people we're better today than we were 5 years ago. 5 years from now, we'll be better than we are today. And I feel that as a person. And so when I think of what's next, I think of learning more, hopefully always having humility, hopefully always understanding that I make it happen, that the people that we bring in make it happen, that I'm not waiting for the world to come to me, Those are the kind of things that I think about in terms of what's next. It's not some place, it's not some asset level, it's not, hopefully it's unbelievably great performance. We work for that every single day so we can deliver that to our investors. But it is all those learning edges are what's next. And the unfortunate thing is most often the ones that are the most, have the most impact are the ones that hurt the most. And you know, when I think about the learning edge of 2008, it's brutal, awful, but we're scarred but smarter. Mm-hmm. And you know, I welcome even the scars because I know that will lead to a more successful life.
And you can own them and learn from them.
Well, own them, learn from them, hopefully teach others, hopefully be a good mentor and a good sponsor and a good colleague. I mean, all of those things matter to me. Not from the perspective of being liked. That's not how I think about it. You know, it's like I always find it very interesting now with parents talking about being liked by their children, which when you're black, your mom doesn't care if you like her. At all.
Asian moms are the same way.
They do not care. You know, my mom would say to me all the time, I am not your friend. I'm your mom. And I feel that way a little bit at work. It's not about being liked, but it's about being a good, honest, decent person. That is like, to me, you know, every day working harder and better towards those kind of things is what's next.
Well, thank you so much. Have fun with your pending nuptials.
Thank you.
And I'll keep staring at that ring. Thank you so much from Carlson and all of us for being here.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here, and I wish you all good luck.